Welcome to the June 2022 Star Wars Canon Update. Last month we got 4 new streaming episodes, 2 books, and 8 comic issues, so let's dive in. A little series called Obi-Wan Kenobi released its final 4 episodes, showing Obi-Wan rescue a young Princess Leia from the Empire, confront Darth Vader again, and overcome his failures to become a Jedi Master once more. As usual, I won't spend a lot of time talking about a series I assume anyone watching this channel would have already seen for themselves, but I loved the story they told in Obi-Wan Kenobi. I struggled with some aspects of its execution, which just comes down to the fact that it was a smaller production than a film, but it is what it is. I've talked about the series extensively at this point, so let's move on. Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher just recently came out, so I won't dive into spoilers now, but it's good. It's the story of Luke and Lando hunting Ochi of Bestoon while he chases Rey and her parents across the galaxy. It provides some much-needed context to the sequel trilogy while still providing a compelling story of its own. It's also got a ton of great connections to other Star Wars books and comics that canon junkies will really appreciate. I recommend it if you're into that era of Star Wars for sure. I've done a full review of the book already if you want to check that out, and if you're interested in picking up the audiobook for free, you can by following the link in the description or by visiting www.audibletrial.com/StarWarsExplained. Stories of Jedi and Sith is another book that was released, this one a collection of 10 short stories about Jedi and Sith. As with any anthology, some were great and some were okay. I really loved Michael Cogg's High Republic-era story about a child who wanted to become a Jedi despite not being Force-sensitive, Tessa Gratton's story about the Emperor and Yoda stood out to me, and Michael Morisi's tale about Darth Maul. Those were my favorites. Nothing in the book had any huge canon revelations, but that wasn't really the point. Each story is also paired with artwork by Jake Bartok, which was great to see after having followed him on Twitter for quite a while. It's also available on Audible with narration from some familiar voices like Sam Witwer, Nika Futterman, Meredith Salinger, and Mark Thompson. Moving into comics, Crimson Reign released its 5th and final issue. The Empire learns Crimson Dawn is responsible for causing chaos across the galaxy, specifically to fight the Sith. As they close in on Kira's location, she activates her operatives in every major faction to weaken the Empire further. Meanwhile, the Knights of Ren and the Archivist fight their way to some sort of ancient artifact that looks like an hourglass. Supposedly, it will be crucial to Kira's fight to come in the Hidden Empire, the conclusion of these Crimson Dawn-centric comics. I thought this issue was great. It's probably my favorite comic of the month, but Crimson Reign was good all the way through. I liked that it still felt a bit like a crossover event, but it wasn't so tightly connected as War of the Bounty Hunters. Each series had more freedom to tell their own stories while still being affected by the events of Crimson Reign. Star Wars issue 24 was fine to me. Last month I said I hoped we were wrapping up everything going on with Shara Bey and Commander Zara, and yes, it looks like we have reached the end. I just wasn't into that side of the story. I'm anxious to get back to Luke and whatever he's up to. I'm really into seeing him continuing his training alone. That said, even though I'm glad the Zara stuff appears to be over, writer Charles Soule still had a lot to say about the differences between the Rebels and the Imperials and when and how they choose to take a life. Darth Vader issue 23 was a return to form for the series. I've been happy about Sabe's return from a few months ago because her previous interactions with Vader were fantastic. It took a couple issues, but now I am seeing the series return to being about how Vader goes from fully part of the Empire, an irredeemable bad guy, into the person that stands with Luke on Endor and maybe, just maybe, starts to wonder if it's not too late for him. And we do so by revisiting his past. Sabe talks about freeing slaves on Tatooine by directly referencing the events of the book Queen's Hope, and she takes Vader to them, where he reunites with Kitster and Wald. Excellent. Now he and Sabe are teaming up to take down a Crimson Dawn mole within the Empire who is exploiting the former slaves, and Sabe gets all suited up in Imperial gear, and I like seeing her also struggling with how far is too far when you're teaming up with the dark side, even if it's for a noble cause. I loved this issue. Darth Vader issue 24 wasn't nearly as good. It was more about action, and did have some very cool frames of Vader and Sabe teaming up to take down this Imperial governor who's actually on the side of Crimson Dawn, and we are still dealing with Vader confronting his past again and realizing Sabe is maybe trying to turn him back towards the light. Obviously, she won't get very far, but I do like seeing this progression of Vader between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Bounty Hunters issue 23 was okay. If you've been keeping up with the canon updates for a while, you know this series is pretty hit or miss for me. I enjoyed the Dengar story well enough, I liked the flashback to his time as a swoop racer on Corellia with Han Solo, just like from Legends, and I like that he has now joined the main team as a spy. I also like that Tonga is worried about keeping the whole crew together after her source of credits was assassinated, adding an extra wrinkle to their mission. It's just an arc I'm not really connecting with at the moment. Bounty Hunters issue 24 was more enjoyable. Valance grapples with his forced servitude within the Empire and saves a child from an assassination, but he also fails to protect the primary target, her father. Meanwhile, Dengar leads the crew into a Crimson Dawn trap on their flagship, where they run into the Knights of Ren. That was a fun sequence, and bringing the Knights into the story is great. I find myself starting to like Bounty Hunters more and more as this arc reaches what I assume is its conclusion. Dr. Aphra issue 21 was awesome. I got chills on the final panel. Last month, Aphra was taken over by the Spark Eternal, some kind of mystical, artificial intelligence technology. Sana and Co escape, and then Domina Tag tasks them with capturing Aphra and separating the Spark from her. To do that, they start gathering the people who know her best, including Magna Tolvan, who we haven't seen since the series rebooted. Excellent. I am so into bringing her back into the story, and I'm pleasantly surprised Aphra's possession by the Spark is lasting more than one issue. Dr. Aphra continues to be one of the most fun Star Wars stories happening right now. The second issue of the Obi-Wan comic was alright. Kenobi writes the story of a mission he and Qui-Gon went on together to a planet where the light had literally disappeared, and they peacefully stopped a wolf-like man who had gone insane because of it. There was a lot of Jedi thinking at play, keeping your balance when you are most afraid, focusing on the problem at hand to find a creative solution. The main story was fine, but honestly, I was more interested in the prologue, which gave some extra insight into Obi-Wan's final duel with Maul. Han Solo and Chewbacca issue 3 was really fun. I liked it a lot. Chewie, Han, his maybe father, and Greedo all escaped the penthouse they were trapped in while trying to steal an urn. Han finds out their target was traded to someone named Madeline Sun, who happens to be the archivist from the Crimson Reign comics. To gain access to her collection of contraband, he calls the Imperials on her, which we've already seen from the Crimson Reign comics a couple months ago. Then Han witnesses the archivist get recruited by Kira. He just doesn't know who or what he's actually watching. All that stuff was a blast, seeing more context of events we briefly spent time on. Han and his maybe father go inside and find the urn, but then Black Chrysanthemum of all people appears to get in their way. Again, super fun issue. For Story of the Month, obviously every Star Wars fan should watch Obi-Wan Kenobi, but again, assuming you already have, I would recommend reading Shadow of the Sith. It is one of the most significant books surrounding the major players of the Skywalker saga we've seen since the Disney acquisition. In July, we're getting one new book, Padawan by Kiersten White about Obi-Wan Kenobi's younger days, and 8 new comic issues, including Star Wars 25 by Charles Soule, an anthology issue with a story connecting back to several of Soule's previous Star Wars series. The Canon Update will return on August 1st to cover all of that. Until then, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.